So we are in a new year now in 2025, so of course I am now going to be predicting who I think is going to be the champion of every single UFC division at the end of the year come 31st of December. In this video, I'm going to be predicting who I think is going to be the champion, but also listing a couple of threats to who I think is going to be the champion, and I'll talk about why I think that they could be. So for example, I do think that Pantoja is going to be the champion at the end of the year. He is getting a little bit older for flyweight, but I still think if you do look at his skill set, I don't think that really anyone in flyweight right now that is going to get a title shot in this year can out-grapple him. So I think the way that you're going to have to beat Pantoja this year is by outstriking him. And I think that the biggest threat to him right now is Brandon Moreno. Now, I've said it multiple times, but yes, Pantoja has defeated Brandon Moreno 3 times, so I think Moreno will probably need to fight again to get a title shot. But he did give Pantoja a lot of trouble in their third fight, and he has looked really good in recent performances over Amir Albazi, which is a somewhat similar stylistic matchup, given the fact that Amir Albazi is, of course, a wrestler as well. And also, I have included Kai Kara France in here. Now, I do think that Pantoja would defeat Moreno and Kai Kara France, which is why I think he's still going to be the champ at the end of the year. But Kai Kara France does just have really good takedown defense and really good grappling defense. You see it in his fights against Askar Askarov and to some extent Amir Albazi as well. So I think that Kai Kara France could give Pantoja some trouble by outstriking him on the feet. So that is why I think that those two are the biggest threats to Pantoja. But I think Pantoja does defend his bout hopefully twice this year. And I think he's the champ at the end of the year. I do think Umar beats Merab. That is the fight that's coming up. I think Umar is a pretty crazy favorite to go into that matchup, which is kind of insane because Merab is just a tough stylistic matchup for anybody. But I thought that Corey Sandhagen was going to be the most difficult style for Umar to deal with, given the fact that Corey's wrestling has improved drastically in the last 3 years or so. And also the fact that Corey Sandhagen just has a really tricky striking style that a lot of people do struggle to deal with. And in that fight, Umar just beat Corey Sandhagen, like, relatively soundly. He beat him on the feet and also in the wrestling. I was quite surprised. I actually did pick Sandhagen in that fight because, of course, we hadn't seen Umar fight anyone ranked at that point. And now, after seeing him beat Corey Sandhagen in that way, I'm pretty sold on Umar's skill set. Now, I've always said that Umar's striking's really good. I didn't realize it was like good enough to beat up Corey Sandhagen on the feet. He was still slower than Sandhagen, but he still landed the better shots and had the wrestling threat as well. I think he does beat Merab. Now, Merab's just going to be a tough guy to beat because Merab shoots takedowns all the time. But I think the way that you can just stop Merab from shooting takedowns is by taking him down yourself and controlling him on top. And I think that Umar can do that to Merab. And I think that on the feet as well, Umar is going to be the better striker out of the two. I am that sold on his skill set. But I have also included Petr Yan as a big threat to him. Petr Yan just beat Davison Figueiredo in a pretty good comeback performance. He's on a win streak right now. And Yan, he did have a pretty bad losing streak there at one point. But you can't deny just the skills that he does possess. I think that Yan could present the threat to Umar with his takedown defense and just really good boxing on the inside. In featherweight, it's up for debate, really, whether or not Ilia Topuria stays at the weight class because he apparently wants to fight at 155 pounds. He wants to move up to lightweight. His coach was talking about how he walks around at 190 pounds. I'm sorry, Ilia Topuria, you're 5'6". You're not walking around at 190 pounds. I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. I think I would believe it if he was walking around at 180 pounds because most fighters do cut around 15% of their body weight, give or take. No, like 170. Anyway, I just don't understand why Ilia wants to move up to 155. I actually think that would be a mistake. He tried to do it against Joe Herbert, and we saw how that worked out. He did win the fight, but he still got knocked down by Joe Herbert. But I think at 145, I do actually look at the weight class, and I think that aside from the guys that he's already beaten in Volkanovski and Holloway, I don't know if anyone can beat him. Now, the thing that Topuria has already proven is he can beat and knock out strikers that are landing more volume than him and arguably are better in striking in general than him, because Volkanovski outlanded him quite significantly in the first round, then was outlanding him in the second round before he got knocked out. Max Holloway, once again, was outlanding Ilia Topuria, but Topuria was landing the better shots and was still coming forward and eventually knocked out Max Holloway. So, despite that, I do think that Arnold Allen could still present a threat to Topuria because he is just a really good striker and he would throw volume out there. The problem, though, with Arnold Allen is he isn't a volume striker. He's a low volume striker that relies on his power quite a bit. So I think that Ilia Topuria would beat him. But I think the biggest threat to Topuria right now is Movsar Evloev. Evloev's a pretty big guy for 145 pounds. He's going to present a wrestling threat that I don't think Topuria has really dealt with in his championship run so far. But ultimately, I think Topuria would knock him out as well. And the thing about Topuria that I think a lot of people have overlooked recently because he's been knocking everyone out, I think his grappling is actually better than his striking. So I think that he could even sub Evloev if the fight got down to the ground. We saw how his fight against Bryce Mitchell went. But Diego Lopes is also a threat, but I think that Diego Lopes, I think he's just too sloppy. He's too hittable. I think Topuria would land on Lopes. Lopes is striking. We saw it in the Dan Ige fight. I know it was a different performance because of the multiple weight cuts, but we can see that Diego Lopes has his holes. But he's so big for the division, I think he's got a chance just to hurt and finish anyone. But ultimately, I do think that Ilia Topuria, if he stays at 145, which he should, will be the champion at the end of the year. Now we can move up to the weight class that Ilia Topuria wants to move up to. We've got Islam Makhachev. I looked through the rankings. The biggest threat to Islam Makhachev genuinely just is Arman Tsarukyan. I would say the second biggest threat to Islam Makhachev is probably Charles Oliveira. But after seeing Charles's more recent performances, I don't really know if he presents as much of a threat to Islam as he did at one point. So I think that Arman is the biggest threat to Islam Makhachev. But I think that Makhachev is going to win that fight, and I think that he is going to be the champion at the end of the year. Arman Tsarukyan and Makhachev have fought before. They fought to a somewhat competitive decision where Arman Tsarukyan gave Makhachev some trouble in the wrestling, but Makhachev ultimately did end up winning that fight, and that fight was a very long time ago. But since then, Arman Tsarukyan has greatly improved his striking, so it could be an interesting fight if the wrestling cancels out, but Makhachev has proven before that his striking's really good. He proved in the first Volkanovski fight that his boxing, his just striking in general, was a lot better than I thought it was. And I think against Arman, I think he beats Arman. And here's the thing as well. If Ilia Topuria moves up to 155 pounds and somehow gets the title shot against Islam Makhachev, I think Islam Makhachev would defeat Ilia Topuria as well, if that was to happen. But yeah, I think Makhachev remains the champion at lightweight in this year. The welterweight one, this is a good division to watch out for this year, I'll be honest, guys, because I think that at 170 pounds, there's so many good prospects out there. I think you could even include Carlos Prates on the biggest threat list to Shavkat Rakhmonov. 170 pounds is loaded. Joaquin Buckley, is now coming up. Like, 170 pounds is loaded. And, but I do think at the championship level, I do think Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to defeat Belal Muhammad. Now, Belal Muhammad is going to be a tough test for Shavkat. We just saw Shavkat get by Ngari in what was an okay performance, but it really was quite underwhelming. I still think he beats Belal. Belal's old, man. Like, Belal's nearly 40, you know? He don't got that much time left before he starts to really slow down at this point. And I know that Belal just went out there and absolutely smoked Leon Edwards and made Leon Edwards look just terrible. Damn, that sucks. But I think that Rakhmonov, he's not just going to back up like he's just not going to back up like Leon Edwards did, you know? But I also think another one that could be a sneaky candidate for a threat to the title is Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della Maddalena, he didn't fight much last year because he had a really bad injury. I think he broke his arm and he got an infection in the bone or something just horrendous like that. So he's been sitting out for a long time with injury. But I think if he does come back, and he does come back as good as he was, he's going to be a threat for Belal. I think he could be a threat for Shavkat Rakhmonov. I even think like Carlos Prates, as I did say, you could put him in here too. I think he could maybe find himself in title conversations if he gets a couple of big wins in the year too. At middleweight, I think Khamzat Chimaev does defeat Dricus du Plessis. Now, the fight that's actually booked right now is Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. And I do think Dricus du Plessis is going to defeat Sean Strickland for the second time at 185 pounds at UFC 312. But I think that when they do Dricus versus Khamzat, I think Khamzat does beat Dricus. Now, the thing about Khamzat Chimaev is we all know that the biggest threat to Khamzat Chimaev is honestly himself. It seems like he has like a really weak immune system, or he just gets ill really easily. Like, there's probably just something going on there in his genetics that just kind of means that he just does get ill. Like, we remember, like, he nearly died, like in 2020 or something like that. Like, Khamzat was in hospital, in 2024. I mean, Khamzat's going through a lot, but the thing that we know that Khamzat really does lack when it comes into that cage is the cardio. We saw it in the Usman fight, and I think that if anyone can survive Khamzat Chimaev's first 2 rounds, it could be Imavov, it could be Imavov, or it could be Kaya Borelho. But I think if you're going to beat Khamzat, you just need to survive the first 2 rounds. In all honesty, I don't know if Dricus can do it. I don't think Sean Strickland can do it. I was thinking about including Sean Strickland here, but I was like, I don't know if Sean Strickland's takedown defense is that good. Could you argue Israel Adesanya's takedown defense is good enough to outlast Khamzat Chimaev for 2 rounds? I want to say no after the Dricus du Plessis fight. So, yeah, I think that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be the champion at the end of 2025. At 205 pounds, this is where a lot of people probably disagree with me on this one. I don't know why they're not doing the fight. I genuinely do believe that Alex Pereira would defeat Magomed Ankalaev if they were to fight, and I've been saying that for a long time. I think that Alex Pereira is going to be the champion at the end of the year. But here's the thing. This is like the insane thing about this fight. Last year, the reason why it didn't happen was because Magomed Ankalaev demanded for it to be in his home, like not his hometown, but his home area of Dubai. And now this year, the perfect time to make this fight would be in March. You know, you can give these guys a couple of months to prepare. But the problem is, Ramadan in 2025 is at the very end of February to the very end of March. The whole month of March is going to be Ramadan. And that's probably when the UFC wants Alex Pereira to return. So I think they're going to do Alex Pereira versus somebody else. Now, there's rumor, like this is just pure speculation and rumor, that maybe Jan Blachowicz has pulled out of his fight against Carlos Ulberg and they're going to do Alex Pereira versus Carlos Ulberg. Or maybe they're even going to do Nikita Krylov versus Alex Pereira. I mean, they did Khalil Roundtree versus Alex Pereira. But to talk about it, I think Ankalaev is clearly the biggest threat to Pereira. I think Ankalaev is even the favorite in that fight. But I honestly do think Pereira would knock him out. Now, it would really come down to whether or not Ankalaev is going to shoot takedowns over and over and over again. But to ignore Ankalaev, because everyone talks about that fight, I think Nikita Krylov is a sneaky contender to give Alex Pereira some trouble. Now, Krylov, I will admit, is like one of my favorite fighters, so, you know, there probably is some bias there, but the reason why I have included him is because he is really good at striking, and he's also really good at grappling. He's going to present multiple threats to Pereira, whereas Khalil Roundtree only has striking. Other fighters in the past, which Alex Pereira has admittedly fought, only had striking. Krylov has the striking and the grappling to back it up. And then I have included Jan Blachowicz here. I know Jan Blachowicz is like 40, 41 years old at this point, and he has been out injured. He's booked against Carlos Ulberg, and I think that Ulberg is going to beat him, by the way. I still included Jan Blachowicz here as a sneaky contender to hurt, or to dethrone Alex Pereira, just because they have fought before. And he gave Alex Pereira like a lot of trouble at 205 pounds. So maybe in the rematch, Jan Blachowicz could make some adjustments. I don't think so, personally, but I think that you would be doing Jan Blachowicz a disservice by just completely ignoring him in the conversations to potentially dethrone Alex Pereira. At heavyweight, I think that John Jones does lose to Tom Aspinall. I think that, especially after watching John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, was just a really sad fight to watch. Tom Aspinall's just so much faster than John Jones. The way that John Jones would beat Aspinall is by taking him down and then just trying to ground and pound him out like he's done with a lot of opponents in the past, and also like he nearly did to Stipe in the first round. But I think on the feet, I think that Tom Aspinall is just going to be just too good, too fast for John Jones. And we saw that in the Stipe Miocic fight. We really did. But I think the biggest threat to Tom Aspinall is Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida is going to be fighting against Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak, I think Tom Aspinall would beat him again. If they've even fought, they might not have, but they might not have. Anyway, I think that Jailton Almeida is going to present a threat to anyone at this weight class. Now, Tom Aspinall does have sneaky jiu-jitsu, but Almeida is just a guy that shoots for takedowns, and when he gets you down, you're going to struggle to get back up, unless you're Derek Lewis. And then Volkov, I know Volkov just like lost to Gane, and it was a very controversial decision. I personally don't think it was like the biggest robbery of the year, like a lot of people are making it out to be. But the reason why I can't include Gane in this list against Aspinall is because Gane he makes so many mistakes on the ground in the grappling that I think Aspinall would be able to out-grapple him and actually find a submission if the fight got down to the ground. Volkov is a very, very tall guy for the weight class. Pretty good striking and underrated grappling, I would say, about Volkov. But yeah, I think that Aspinall does beat Volkov and Gane like somewhat easily. And I think that he does beat John Jones. But Almeida, I think that he would get knocked out by Aspinall. But Almeida is going to present a very tough test for Tom Aspinall if that fight does come around. Now we've got the women's divisions. I think Zhang Weili does defend her belt against Tatiana Suarez. Once again, I looked at the rankings. I cannot find a single fighter outside of Tatiana Suarez that I think could present a very serious threat to Zhang Weili. And this is why I get annoyed with Zhang Weili. She doesn't fight often enough. She's got a whole division that she is genuinely better than. And she just doesn't fight that often. She just disappears. I feel like if Zhang Weili fought every 5 months, she would just become one of the greatest fighters of all time, regardless of men or women. Because at strawweight, no one can beat her, genuinely. But Tatiana Suarez probably could. I think that Zhang Weili does beat Suarez, but I think that if anyone's going to beat Zhang Weili, it would be Suarez, because Suarez's wrestling is just so good. You could maybe include Mackenzie Dern just because of her grappling is so threatening, but Dern's on a CTE speedrun right now, and I think she's going to get knocked out by Ribas. I think at flyweight, after watching Shevchenko versus Grasso 3, I think that Manon Fiorot would beat Shevchenko. Shevchenko would present some wrestling threat there. I think that's probably how she would have to win, but I think that Fiorot is just the better striker out of the two. And Fiorot also beat Erin Blanchfield. So, you know, there's a lot going for Fiorot in that matchup. Bantamweight, I think Kayla Harrison defeats Juliana Pena. But I did include Raquel Pennington as maybe like a potential sneaky threat for Kayla Harrison. Just because if it's going to be a title fight, obviously, it's going to be a 5-round fight. And Kayla Harrison at 135 pounds, I thought she did show really good cardio in her last fight over the 3 rounds. It's still a 5-round fight, and Pennington did show that she can go 5 rounds when she fought against Pena. I thought it was a really bad decision. I think a lot of people think it was a really bad decision, but I don't know. Harrison against Pena could be interesting because Harrison's probably going to want to get the takedowns. We know that Pena's striking is just really bad, so Harrison probably would be the better striker in that matchup anyway. For Pennington, I would say Pennington's a better striker, a better boxer anyway than Kayla Harrison. So it would come down to the takedowns for Kayla, which I think she would get. But yeah, I think Kayla Harrison will be the champion at the end of the year at Bantamweight. Women's Bantamweight, of course. And that's it. So let me know what you think about that. I can go backwards. That's pretty sick. Let me know what you think about that. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there threats out there that you think are more threatening than some of the threats that I put up there? And if you've got any other video ideas, let me know because I'm pretty open to it. I'm looking into Contender Series 2025. Man, this is like so many good prospects out there that were already on 2024. So I think there's going to be a lot of returning guys this year on the Contender Series. I will start doing those videos soon. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.